You know, and I'm about to give a sermon about it works a lot better when there's a live battery in it. I'm about to give a sermon about times of plenty and then times of lean, all from our Torah portion of Miketz. And what do? I find myself with a very scarce microphone, a battery in my microphone. Where I really want to start tonight is the last night of Hanukkah, my big adventure was to drive to the Orlando airport, pick up Anna, and bring her home. She is home for winter break, coming all the way from Boston, the land of snow. She was making snow angels last night and dancing in the sun today, and how wonderful it is to have her home and have all of our children together to enjoy the very end of Hanukkah and now this night of Shabbat. And I say that, and it's funny because my kids they're teenagers. Anna's almost not a teenager. They are growing up before our eyes. And now when I have younger colleagues and I am on various phone calls and they're talking about having to put their younger kids to bed, I just chuckle and I laugh because the honest truth is that now my children tuck me in at night. That very often Jill and I are ready to go to sleep long before they do, and they have actually come in to give us a kiss on our forehead to tuck us in and make sure we are settled for the night. It is very sweet. It is very incredible. And it's just one of those beautiful things as the generations turn. I share that with you because I also remember when my kids were little, and I would be the one putting them to bed and singing them to sleep. One of the songs that I would sing to my kids, and yes, even when I sang, they still fell asleep. Believe it or not, they liked the sound of my voice. It would calm them enough to fall asleep. One of the songs I would always sing is Lo Alecha Hamlahalik, Lo Alecha Hamlahalik more. That we are not responsible to finish the task, but we're not free from working on it. And in fact, must have made such a strong impression because I know Anna used that at one point for her auditions to be a song leader for our regional youth group. So I always love that song and that quote from Pirkei Avot, that it is not, we don't have to finish the task, but we're not free from working on it. And I share that with you because tonight I have a task. I have a piece of the task, and I'm going to tell you what the task is, but each of us has to figure out how to make it work. Because what I'm going to share with you, some of you are going to shake your head and say, Rabbi, I can't do that. Or, Rabbi, that's not me. And I say this, and it's my hope that you will think about the biblical story of Joseph, and that you will see the illustration I offer and really think. Think about the one thing that you can do. We are told that if we sustain a life, then we sustain an entire world. And that is very much in this week's Torah portion in Miketz. And in Miketz, you have the story of Joseph. And Joseph, remember the Joseph Technicolor green coat, last week's Torah portion, he is bragging to his brothers. He's got the Technicolor dream coat. They decide to get rid of him. Some of them want to kill him. He ends up being sold. He ends up in Egypt. He ends up having problems in Egypt. He ends up in jail. And in jail, how does he get out of prison in Egypt? But he interprets Pharaoh's dream. And this is the sustenance of the world. This is the one thing that I'm hoping you will think about how you can make this a reality. Because what is Pharaoh's dream? That there are going to be 7 fat cows and 7 skinny cows, and the 7 skinny cows are going to eat the 7 fat cows, or 7 fat heads of grain and 7 parched heads of grain, and the parched is going to destroy the fat. And what does Joseph say to Pharaoh? He says, your dreams are not just dreams, they're not just nightmares, they are in fact prophecies from God. I'm not going to tell you what they mean, I'm going to tell you what God means them to mean, that there are going to be 7 years of plenty in this land, in this whole region of the world, and then there are going to be 7 years of lean, 7 years of famine. And Pharaoh, if you are wise, you will collect the extra You will collect in the years of plenty, not letting us use it all, but making storehouses. So when we get to those years of lean, when we get to those years of famine, we will be able to feed the people. And in fact, that is exactly what happens. And the sons of Jacob who are dealing with famine in the land of Israel know here that there are storehouses, and they end up coming, and there's a whole reunion with their brother Joseph. Very incredible as we close the book of Genesis. That is the story. If you sustain a life, it's as if you sustain an entire world. Joseph figures out what he has to do. How when we have plenty, when we have excess, when we are blessed, that we think about what we need to set aside so that when we find ourselves in those stuck and narrow places, run out of resources or run out of energy or run out of time, we have something extra to be able to run on, and as Joseph did in the land of Egypt, to be able to share and lift everybody up. This is also, for me, an important time to share that story and that message, because here we're at the end of Hanukkah. The lights have gone out. How funny did I feel when I unplugged the big electric menorah outside of our sanctuary tonight? The candles are done, the lights are out, Hanukkah is done, and yet I say here we've gone from this plenty. Last night, that was a lot of light. That was a lot of candles. That's the challenge. How do we take that excess of light and now bring it into this new part of the year post-Hanukkah? I said I was going to offer you one thing, one paradigm, one way of saying how do we take that plenty and store it up so that it can then be released when it is needed. And my answer tonight is something very tangible and very small, but yet very powerful. And as I was preparing for my Chevruta on Hanukkah study, I happened to catch a little comment, a little fragment of commentary in the Jewish Holidays book by Michael Strassfeld. It was a little comment by Zalman Dr. Shalomi. And Reb Zalman said, for your Hanukkah menorah, which you're going to light with oil, don't just buy a wick at the store and cut a wick. Why don't, at least for one night, that's right, save your dryer lint. You're going to be talking and saying, okay, wait, Rabbi Birnholz saves, and yes, I know, I have a cluttered, messy office. I spread everywhere and have stuff everywhere, and you're probably laughing right now at me. I shake my head and laugh at myself, because yes, I have a Tic Tac container, because why not save those too? And it is full of dryer lint. And yet, how incredible. Rather than just simply consuming the Tic Tacs and throwing away the container, rather than just taking the dryer lint and throwing it in the trash so it goes into the landfill, what did I do? I saved it. And more than that, I then took it and I made it into an olive oil lamp, and here I'll just raise it another level. What if instead of buying Hanukkah candles, how many of you have been on that quest to find Hanukkah candles? What if rather than buying Hanukkah candles and melting Hanukkah candles and all of the excess consumables so we can have those menorah lights, what if instead we took the oil when we were frying our latkes and saved it and used dryer lint in order to make our lights? You're right. It's wacky. It's crazy. It is absolutely strange, and yet it's such a powerful thing. It is exactly what Joseph did, saying, how do we look at our world? How do we look at the things that we consume and discard? Not living in what now, but not thinking about our future when supplies might be scarce, when resources are scarce. What can we do to preserve, to sustain, to reduce, to reuse, to renew? I don't expect all of you to run out on this Shabbat and start saying, I'm going to save all my oil for my Hanukkah lamp or my dryer lint. I will fully agree those are my own creative craziness that I love to do when I'm looking at the world. But if you sustain a life, you sustain an entire world. Joseph not only saved himself and all of Egypt, but he saved. We are here as Jews today because Joseph, listening to Pharaoh's dream, being in touch with the divine, said, we have to preserve. We have to sustain. We have to find a way of keeping the light going, not just for today, but thinking about what the world looks down the road. And so I'm asking you, Billy Crystal in the movie City Slickers finishes with this big thing, and he gets it from Jack Palance. My dad had a beautiful sermon, and Jack Palance says to Billy Crystal, just one thing. Your act of saving, and I will say it doesn't have to be concrete and physical like dryer lint and olive oil for an olive oil lamp. It might be a spiritual act where you find a way of taking that reserve energy, of a little bit of energy, and you cook a meal and you put it in the freezer and you have somebody who needs, this person who's sick, and you're able to give them that meal. It might be some type of act of caring. It might be some type of act of grace. It might be an act of kindness. There are so many ways to be stopped as we are moving through the midst of our day and say, wait a second, do I have some excess energy? Do I have a leftover bit of something that I can save and I can preserve so that when I see the world in a space of darkness, when I see the world in a place where there is a lack for something, that we, like Pharaoh, like Joseph, like the people of Egypt, have built up storehouses, that we, in that moment, in that time, can look out at the world and say, if I sustain a life, I sustain a world, and here, I have a gift, I have some blessing. I have what God has shared with me, that I am blessed in my life, and I am able to take that little bit that could have just been thrown away, that could have just been lost, that could have just been forgotten, and use it as one little piece that fits into the greater whole, that makes a wholeness that transcends. That is a way to bring shalom, to really bring wholeness, harmony, and peace. May each of us on this Shabbat, with our creativity, with our chutzpah, with a little bit of ingenuity, each find our one thing that, like Joseph telling Pharaoh, we can preserve, we can sustain, we can collect. So when our world is in need, we are ready to share our light and our love. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.